In this video, we're going to take a look at the node editor. The node editor is a graphical interface similar to the hypergraph and hypershade. But what it allows us to do is connect different attributes from one node to the other. Now we can access the node editor by going to Window and choose Node Editor, and it will open that up into a separate window. Or we can take a viewport and change that viewport to be our node editor. And I'll choose Panels, Panel, Node Editor. Now when I first go into the node editor, it is empty. We need to select a node and have it placed inside of our node editor. Now what I want to do here is I want to take our crow's wing and have one joint control all of the joints in the wing. This way, when I go to rotate the wing, I'll not only see more movement down the joint chain of the specific wing, I'll also see the right side wing mimic the left. So with this joint selected, I'll also select the next one, and then we'll come back into the node editor, and we'll bring the node in by choosing the plus icon at the top. This will add our selected nodes to the graph. Now we can move around inside the node editor just as we would any type of camera here, and we can do our pan and zoom in the same way. And we can also have selected nodes and frame them up by using F, and we can also hit A to frame all if we have nodes outside of our current viewing region. Now the node editor shows us a connection, and if we place our mouse over that connection, it'll give us a description of what that connection is. All joints have this inverse scale connector between them. We don't need to do anything with it. But we can also grab each of these nodes and move them around independently. Or we can go over and let's just turn off some of those extra tools there, like the channel box. This way it'll expand our node editor so we can see a bit more. And we have a magnet icon here, and this will turn on grid snapping. So instead of having that free motion, we can snap to grid just to keep things nice and neat for us. Now the main function of our node editor is to make connections between our nodes. The node itself can be expanded to several different levels. And we can see in the node, there's a little icon right here that also matches the icons up at the top of the screen. If we click on this inside the node, it'll expand the node to the first level. If we click again, we'll get a secondary level. And this will show us the majority of the attributes that we can make connections with. Now we can also choose the icon from the top here to expand all the way to the very last level. Likewise, if we click the icon here or up here, it will collapse that node. Ultimately, what I'd like to do here is connect the rotation of left wing 1 to the rotation of left wing 2. I'm going to go back to the viewport here real quick so we can kind of see what our goal is. Currently, if I select the first joint and rotate it in the X, the wing rotates and all of the joints that are children simply follow along. But I'd like to see a little bit more activity there. If I were to select at the very end of my chain here, this joint, and then hold Shift and just go down the chain, selecting each one of these joints individually, as opposed to selecting only the parent, and we go and rotate, we'll see that all of those joints get a rotation value. And now the wing curls. This is really what I'd like to see here. I do not want to have to go in and select each one of these joints every time. Instead, I just want to select one joint, or perhaps even a secondary control handle, and rotate that in order to make the entire wing move. Right now, when we rotate, we're rotating the X channel. So let's connect the rotate X of wing 1 to the rotate X of wing 2. We have a rotate value here. If we choose the plus sign, that'll expand that. We'll expand that on wing 2 as well. And what we want to do is select a port that we want to connect. So in this case, I want to click on the port, which is the colored dot on either side of our node. I'll click and drag that port to the other. So we'll left click, and I get a wire that I can then drag and drop onto an opposing port. In this case, we just want to go from rotate X to rotate X, so we'll just make that connection right there. We only need to let go of that port wire. Maya will automatically make the connection for us. Now, when I rotate in the X, the very first joint, that second joint is also rotating. Let's continue and add another joint, and we'll connect it in the same way. But I'm going to select this node, and we have 3 icons here that allow us to see the input and output connections, whether they're upstream or downstream. So we have our input here. This one will give us both. This one will give us the output. I'm going to click on the output connection, and now that will bring up a lot of different nodes here too, but we can ignore those. But most importantly, it brings up the next wing in the chain. So I don't need to go back to my viewport and try and select all of those through there. I can just stay right here in the node editor. With that node selected, I'll expand out to the bottom level there, exposing the rest of those channels that I need. And we'll click on rotate. And once again, grab the rotate X, this time from left wing number 2, and we'll just drag that to left wing number 3. And open its output connections. We'll expand wing 4, and we can just do the same thing. If these other nodes do get in the way, we can get rid of them out of the node editor by selecting them, and I'm holding Shift to select all 3 of them, and we can just hit the trash can icon. This will only remove the nodes from the graph. It will not delete them from your scene. Now when I go to wing 4, if I choose wing 4's output connection, I'm going to get those nodes back again. So I'll just leave those there. But if we were working on a much larger scene and making lots of different connections, we might clean it up a little bit better. And let's expand wing 5. And we'll make that connection to rotate X. Now we can also change how the node editor functions in relation to the world outside of it. Right now, if I click on wing 5, it will select the joint in my scene. This icon right here will turn that on or off, and this is unsyncing the node editor from the world. So I'll just click into empty space to deselect that node, and we'll click on this to unsync the node editor with our world. So now when I select wing 5, it's not actually selecting it inside of Maya. We're only selecting it inside of the node editor. This will help prevent any problems that we might run into, or even accidentally deleting a node. I'm going to select my right wing, and we'll select the root of my left wing, and I'll add those to my graph. And here I have right wing, and I have left wing. I really don't need wing number 4. We'll just get rid of that one. And we'll select both of these and expand them, and we'll grab our rotate. And I'll take rotate X and drag that over to the rotate X of right wing. And let's go check. Now all I need to do is rotate my left wing in order to get the right wing to work. I made that connection backwards, so I'll select that node, and to break that connection, we'll just choose that and just hit delete. So at any point in time, we can just select that wire and get rid of it. Now let's go back. I've made that connection properly. And now when I rotate, you can see that all of those additional connections I made are working, and the wing is curling nicely. And then we only connected this one to the first joint in the chain over here, and it's causing the right wing to move as well. And I could go through and then just make the rest of those connections. I could take the right wing 1 and just connect it to right wing 2, and that motion all the way from the left wing will translate all the way down the right wing, saving me a lot of time and trouble. I only need to select a single node in order to get my character's wings to flap.